All right. Welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody, our conversation series. Today, we are joined again by Jonathan Gilliam. You guys don't need an introduction to him. He's been on here before. Tons of military and law enforcement experience through the FBI. We're going to hop right into this today and make it as quick as possible. We have LA riots that are happening right now from ICE deportation efforts. These efforts are being restricted not only by the people on the ground, which are pretty obvious paid agitators, but also by politicians. Gavin Newsom at the very top of the state now suing, filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump and the president of the United States for removing criminals from our country. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us again here today. I know our time is limited. Right. Where are we going in Los Angeles? And I know this is spreading. It's in Dallas. I'm in Dallas. This happened here last night. We started seeing protests, but where did this all begin? Who's behind it? Give us the rundown. What are you seeing from your perspective?
Well, first of all, the question of who's behind this is a deep dive that the FBI should be going through. Like, I believe that this is a part of the leftist ideological criminal enterprise. That's what I've termed them, because the abbreviation for that is LICE, and that's exactly what they are. But it's a part of the leftist ideological criminal enterprise. These judges that you've seen that are activist judges, the big money donors on the left, and rhinos, donors to the rhinos themselves, the leftist politicians, these people are all linked. And although one group, this is the way a Rico charge works, is that, let's say there's 5 different groups that are involved in a organized crime, right? This one may do planning, this one may do funding, this one may carry out one act, this may carry out another act in another place, and this one may just be a mouthpiece, but they all work for the greater cause of this, whatever this aim is. And if you can show that they are all knowingly working together, they are all going to get charged for the crimes that this guy does, this guy does. It doesn't matter if they funded it, somehow politically supported it, or used their platform to get the word out so that it could spread. They could all be charged for that, for the crimes that are committed, each one. So this needs to be looked at like like the mafia or any other criminal enterprise. And if they did that, if the Bureau did that, and Pam Bondi did that, and again, I hold my reserve and judgment, or belief, I should say, or my hope and reserve for Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino. I want them all to do great, but we're not seeing great. We're seeing a lot of verbiage and a lot of stuff that the Bureau would have done anyway. Right. So this is something that would be outside of the box. And I've been saying this, I think the last time I was on your show, we may have touched on this, but I believe that this is the biggest national security threat. And like everything else that you see, the J6 committee that went against Trump, the falsification of evidence to entrap President Trump after his last term, or before his last term, all these different things that they do, whether it be these riots, the riots in Portland, the riots in Wisconsin and Minneapolis, all these are connected. Sure. These people are trained the same way. They wear the same kind of equipment. They use the same tactics, techniques, and procedures, same bricks. Everything is the same agitators and controllers of the crowd. And I believe the information flows in the same system in the same way as well. So if the Bureau started looking at this from a criminal standpoint or criminal organized crime standpoint, I think they would be able to figure out mind-blowing things. At this point, I can't tell you who is exactly in charge of it, but I can tell you the overall theory of who's involved. And that's what I believe, is that it's the leftist ideological criminal enterprise. And if we don't get a hold on it, this is going to turn into another Hamas, because I do believe Iran is involved in this. I think when you see people in LA wearing the same head garb as the Palestinians, you've got a problem, because they're also waving flags. And this is another distinction. Terrorism, as we traditionally know it, is the use of force, intimidation, and violence for a political aim. And they use that force, intimidation, and violence to spread fear in the public, so that the public will put pressure politically and the politicians will do what the terrorists in their groups want. But what they're doing now is what Hamas does. They're using fear, intimidation, and violence, or force or fear, intimidation, violence, for a political aim, but it's wrapped in an altruistic, greater good narrative. And so they convince people, which they've done here, to follow their idea of this thing, that's this cause, and they go out and they use the violence, use the force, intimidation, but they tell people this is why we're doing it, and people jump on the bandwagon for that.
Sure.
So that's what's occurring now.
Yeah, America is stocked filled with useful idiots at this point, like people who
Yes.
don't think for themselves and stand for nothing. How would Iran be involved in this? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why would Iran agitate America when they're on the brink of war with us on the behalf of Israel? I'm not understanding the Iranian connection. I would understand other connections from the region, but I don't understand that. And maybe we'll get into that at a later date. I want to focus in more on the actual, crimes that are being committed. We're seeing cars being lit on fire, blown up. I don't know if there's a death toll yet. I haven't heard of anyone dying yet. There's definitely hospitalizations happening. Why can't this be under control? I interviewed a former Sheriff Villanueva, a great guy, and he walked through some of the changes in law enforcement in LA County before he left office, and they were horrific, Jonathan.
Right.
I mean, these guys really can't accost anyone anymore. They literally cannot. They have to. If someone runs from them, they can't chase them anymore. It's kind of like Chicago.
Yeah.
How come this isn't under control yet? We're bringing in Marines and National Guard. Like this is crazy. Like where's this headed?
Well, I mean, you can see signs of what they can and can't do when you're watching it live on television and you see DHS trucks roll in, armored trucks, pickup trucks, ICE trucks, and LAPD just stands there.
Yeah.
And they're getting pelted and crushed, and they just stand there as the trucks go by. They don't even do anything. They're standing 10 feet away from the guy who just took a bicycle and hit the side of this government vehicle, and they do nothing about it. So there's evidence of what they can and can't do. And that, to me, is that I have a real problem with that, because when you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution as a police officer, you are bound to that oath, not bound to that politician. And
correct.
Those politicians who were not trained in tactics, they were not trained in warfare, which this is. They were, and they are liars. Typically, they are more lawyers, more close to a lawyer than they are a leader. And so, what you're seeing is what I always hated, and why I ended up getting out of the FBI, is that, and I saw it in every agency, including the SEAL teams in the Department of Defense, I saw in every single one, is that the politicians are the ones who tell you who you're going to go to war with. The politicians are the one they're going to tell you the rules of engagement. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, because it's not effective at all.
At all.
So they can push one way or the other how you fight and who you fight. It's the same as if I will confess, I know nothing about investing. We talked about this before, but I held office, and all of a sudden I'm going to tell you, Eric, how you invest money or what is best. And you, some reason, just say, okay, that's what we're going to do. I swore an oath, and that's what we're going to do. You didn't swear an oath to me. You swore an oath to the Constitution. And when you're given an unlawful order, you shouldn't follow that order. And
you have every right to do that because it's unconstitutional. Like these officers have every right to refuse a stand down order in that scenario.
If they gave them the order to shoot everybody, no matter what, they would say no. Right. So why is it when they have the job of serving and protecting all these people, and they tell them, no, don't do that? How is it that these chiefs and these law enforcement officers are not pushing back and saying, whoa, that is an unlawful order? So that's part of this. I do want to answer your question on Iran, because it does tie into this, is that look at what we're talking about. Look at what happened in DC, where 2 Israeli embassy workers were shot and killed in cold blood. Look at what happened in Colorado, where an individual went out and poured Molotov cocktails all over people and set 8 people on fire, including one Holocaust survivor. Then go look at what Hamas does, the Houthis do, Hezbollah does. Look at the verbiage that they use. Look at the actions that they have. The same thing. They are using the same exact verbiage. Look at Columbia University and the agitators and the individual that was arrested by ICE, and his family was about to be deported. Not the guy in Colorado, but the other guy. I don't know. Maybe his family wasn't going to be deported, but the guy that the student agitator, right? That is Palestinian. Look at the verbiage he uses. Look at what he says. He's a leader of those agitators in New York. So he comes there and he teaches, trains, funds, does all these things. He's a vessel for that to come in. Now you look at what they're doing in LA. Look at what they wear. Look at the verbiage that they're using. Look at who they're targeting. Look at the hate that's very specifically targeted, the lies that they tell, and the way that the media treats them versus the way they treated the people in Columbia, in Boulder, in DC, and all these different areas. What you'll see is when they had all these college campuses occupied there several years ago, it was the same. They all had the same tents. They all said the same thing, the same chants, which I'm not going to say the chant right now. I hate these protest chants. So it is a merging of the Red Green Alliance, which is communism and Islam, fundamental Islam. And that's what we've seen for years, 50 years longer. We've seen
it's been a long planned takeover of the United States between those two coalitions, but those two coalitions actually have a lot more in common than they have in difference.
A tremendous amount. And see, young people don't know this history. So they're in college, or some of these people that it doesn't matter the cost. Oh, you want an abortion? Let's have a protest and break stuff. You think that your life matters? Well, let's have a protest and break stuff. And so they end up opening themselves up to groups like Iran, who are experts in intelligence operations. And when you look at all the things that are happening, it's very uniformed. The money flows, which the money could be coming from political donors.
Could be coming from your enemy too.
Could be coming from your enemy. That's the thing. So it's the possibility of foreign involvement. We know that that's there.
Oh, that's absolutely there. Yeah.
The possibility that there are people who want to overthrow or rebel against the government, that's clearly there. And the possibility that the government can't enforce the laws, well, that's obviously there. Those are all three of the prongs that President Trump needs to activate the National Guard. So that was happening before President Trump activated the National Guard. So that's the reason why. And when you look at, again, all these things exactly the same. Look at Bass, the mayor of
communist, Marxist, confirmed Marxist. Yeah.
Look at Gavin Newsom, same thing. Look at the verbiage they use. Look at the things they do and they don't do. Then look at New York. Then look at Minneapolis. Look at Wisconsin. Look at Portland. Look at Colorado. Look at DC. Everywhere those people are, these things occur. Now, that's not a coincidence. Right. It's not happening in Clinton, Arkansas, where I know the mayor there, and he's hard charging.
He's not going to let that happen. Yeah.
No. Right. It's not. It could happen in Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas is somewhat turning liberal in certain places. It could definitely happen in Texas, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. Austin is where the headquarters of Antifa are.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence, Eric, that when you look at the verbiage they use is used by Hamas and others, but by Hamas. When you look at the tactics they used by Hamas and others, when you look at where it happens,
throw ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hezbollah, all the terrorist groups there, all
and leftist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be fair. Like, these migrants are here. The primary driver of the migrants that ICE is trying to remove are brought in by HIAS, which is a Jewish organization. So why would Iran be
started on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the confusing part, Jonathan. Is like it's all intertwined. It's almost like the world is completely conspired. Just they're putting aside their own hatred for each other, for their hatred of the United States. Like that seems to be the overwhelming trend. Jewish, Muslim, Christian. Catholic organizations are behind these immigration pushes.
Well,
NGOs of all
in
types, which are
name.
funded by George Soros. George Soros funds these Islamic revolts. He's
Right.
Jewish, right? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Catholic in name,
Yeah,
Jewish in
of
name,
course.
Republican in name,
Muslim in name.
Muslim in name. Yeah, like
To be fair,
I have good friends that are incredible people that are Muslim, and they don't identify with going out and murdering people or burning people or doing any of this stuff. However, they will go protest because they believe the nonsense. So
what nonsense though?
well, they believe in the Palestinian. Not saying that the Palestinian people aren't in a bad way, but that
They're
is
in a
not
horrible
because
way,
of
John.
Israel. That's because Hamas and Hezbollah build their facilities right under the public. They use the public to as a shield, and then they incite the public against Israel. So
yeah, I mean, the thing in America that we have, and like this debate can go on because I can say, how did a bunch of goat herders on hang gliders penetrate the most impenetrable wall in the world? I mean,
right.
I don't want to get into that conversation. I want to keep it more on the riots because it's clear there's a genocide happening. There's mass atrocity happening in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria. It's all over the place. But we're in America. And I think America gets very sidetracked on foreign politics when our own politics are the ones that we need to really focus on here. The focus on, I agree with Newsom. Bass is, a clear Marxist. She's admitted to being a Marxist 4 times on camera.
Sure.
And yet she still has support from people in Los Angeles. Does America not understand how Islam is being used as a battering ram for the benefits of communists? I mean, that's kind of clear to me, and it's been going on. These plans have been in place for 30 years. They've talked about it openly.
Well, I don't think you should use the verbiage "they're being used," because the reality is, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Islam is a closed society that will invite people in, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like a Christian society where everybody is welcome, right? So Islam is different in that way. So you have your extremists who are really fundamentalists, and then you have your progressives, which make up the bulk. However, the bulk, like every religion, will do what they're told because they don't really study the religion. They're not really inspired to follow or seek God. So that's how they end up.
Christians do this too, by the way.
Oh, Christians do this
often.
Of course, that's why God says the gate is narrow and few shall enter.
Correct.
So with that though, Christians aren't actively out. There was a time, the Crusades, sure, that happened, but Christians aren't actively out destroying peoples in order to get their Messiah to come through, which is what the caliphate is all about, right? So there are many in the Islamic.
To be fair, they're building a third temple for a red heifer sacrifice in Israel as well, which is the Mashiach, which is the Jewish Messiah. So like this is happening on both sides of the fence. We only hear about one on the news, but it's happening all over. We live in a very spiritual war oriented environment that's bleeding out kinetically into physical manifestation. And I think that's where, and you and I know that, like you and I know that, but most of the world's not prepared for that.
But here is the difference, okay? When you say that about the red heifer, first of all, that is a very, so I could take that information and set it here. And what you have there is a religious group that is moving towards doing something that they believe will bring in their Messiah, right? But
I was in the meeting. Like I met the rabbis who brought the red heifer. Yeah, the guy who birthed the red heifer is a friend of mine. But
the guy that did those people are not actively going out and killing individuals so that they can bring that red heifer in. But when you look at Islam, what you see is fundamentalists want to clear an area, kill people in an area, or convert them. And in their eyes, it's easier to kill. First.
Yeah,
and then their caliph will come. Right. So the new caliph, and there were 2 ideologies. One was regional and one was global. Syed Qutb was the leader of the regional belief, and Osama bin Laden was the leader of the global ideology. And Syed Qutb died in prison. So we know where that went. So now it's global. He believes in a global caliphate, that the caliphate is going to take over the world. And so that is where ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Sunni and Shia fall into line. They may disagree on a lot of things, but they believe now that the caliph is not just regional, that it is global. These are the fundamentalists. So when you see that, and then you also look at communism, And really, we have to. I've kind of adjusted the way I look on this, is because communism was very specific in World War II. Democratic socialism was very specific, but both Hitler and Marx and Lenin and Stalin were born out of socialism, out of Democrat socialism. They kind of all emerged from that belief system. And so there's difference in how they get to that system of where the government is in control, and then the government releases it in this utopia to the people. But in World War II, fundamental Muslims were fighting with Hitler, right? So can you say that Islam is aligned with Nazism? No, because Nazism is kind of a dead. There are little pockets, but it's kind of dead as far as the veracity that it had. So they have merged over time more with communism. And so this red-green alliance, when you look at what rules now, you look at the problems that we have now, we have Islam, which is the actors that actually take action are very fundamental in nature, right? And they are willing to go all over the world and commit these issues, but they've advanced in their tactics past 9/11.
Drastically. Yeah, absolutely.
When
and
you
they've
look
infiltrated this country monetarily and through positions of power with organizations like CARE. Yeah, they have taken over. I mean, but I'm going to rewind this and be fair.
Hold on. Let me say this, because I want to link this together for you, because this will bring it all right back together. So you have that evolution and that group of people. They are the same as the ones who are fighting in the desert with Hitler. And then on this side, you have communism, which communism was the belief that or communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it, the belief that where they oppress the people enough to where they get rid of the loud people, and then they cause this fusion where the government can step away, or the dictator, and there's this utopia, right? Well, those two groups really believe in similar tactics and ways. Kill all the infidels, convert the rest of them, kill all the loud people, oppress them until they get it, and then the government steps away, and there's a utopia. So they're very similar, and that's why they work together. Now fast forward to now. Look at what you see. You see both groups working together, leftists and those supporters of Hamas that don't understand the reality of what's going on, which is the fundamental on both sides. And so they wear the same outfits, they wear the same helmets, they wear the same store-bought clothes, the masks that were showing up yesterday, ballistic masks that were showing up yesterday on the streets. They say the same verbiage. They go from city to city. Now they're protesting Palestinians. Now they're protesting Mexicans being deported, abortion rights, George Floyd being killed. They're on all these, and it's the same people every time. And when you splinter them and look at them, they come from fundamental Islam and socialist democracy or communism. And so that is what we're seeing there. And it seems very complicated for most people, even the people that are in it. They're so close to it, they don't see what's happening.
Sure.
But when we step back and look at it, it's very crystal clear. And that's why this president, the FBI, Pam Bondi, they have to take this seriously.
And they have to take it seriously before it gets national and out of hand. There's protests planned for next week. I'm going to rewind this just because I have to. National socialism is extremely different from communism. Extremely.
Sure.
In fact, before the war, Germany was the most prosperous per capita nation in the world. That's a proven fact.
Mm-hmm.
So communism believes in the state becomes God and you own no property. These are very different. When Hitler was actually helping Germans buy homes, these are historical facts that I think, and I'm not trying to cause an argument. I'm just making sure I get my piece out.
That's why I said they over time when.
Well, hold on a second, Jonathan. Yep. And at the same time, you said, and you're correct, because I've studied the Quran as well. So you're and let me be clear to everyone listening to this. There are radical Christians, there are radical Muslims, there are radical Jews, there are radical Buddhists, there are radicals in everything. It's not a blanket statement on anyone. And that's where people fall short, is saying every person of this faith or this race is like this. This is not how humanity works. Everyone is different. But at the same time, you talked about the Islam wanting to kill everyone in the air, convert and then decease, right? This is literally in the Quran. It's you offer them a chance to come in. If they don't take it, you behead them. That's in the Quran. Like, you don't have to make that up. That's there. We're not seeing anything different in Israel, though, Jonathan. Like, there's Palestine. There is a greater Israel plan. Netanyahu has gone on television. He has given his greater Israel plan, which involves taking over Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, and creating a larger version of Israel. Those are just facts. So both sides are doing the same. I think the world falls short of trying to blame groups. And I still don't understand how Iran would be, if it's so obvious that it's Iran, why would that benefit them? They're going to get bombed if that happens. And that's the last thing Iran wants.
They though? Because nobody's bombed them yet. And they've been playing this proxy game. Remember, Iran does not fight wars. They use their proxies to fight wars. They fund
As do
them,
we. As
they
do we.
Teach. This is true, but let's look at this from the perspective of who's doing these riots, right? That's where I'm going with this. Iran, they train the proxies, they fund the proxies, they outfit the proxies, and they recruit to fight in these different wars. Houthis, the Hamas, Hezbollah, there's about 40 different proxies that Iran is involved with. So when we look at the reality of who they are, it is a mystery, because just like we're talking about who's behind this stuff, we don't really know exactly who is behind Iran and why no one will touch them. Because Israel proved recently, when they went in and systematically just picked places to bomb, that their air defense is terrible. I believe it was...
But you just contradicted yourself. Israel bombed Iran. You said, who's bombing Iran? Israel bombed Iran.
But they did. They went in and hit specific places, but they didn't destroy Iran. They didn't destroy the headshed. They just went over the border and hit a few places. I think it was India or Pakistan.
Okay. That's not okay either, right? Like, they're proxying too. I mean, there's a proven money trail from Israel to Qatar to Hamas. Like, this is very well known and documented. And Jonathan, you hit on the right thing. We don't know who's behind it. We want to blame Israel. We want to blame Palestine. We want to blame Iran. We want to blame America. But in the end, I think it's someone much higher above them. I think it's people above nation states that have tremendous wealth that are looking to take over America. We are the most resource-rich, labor-rich, intelligence, technology. We are the crown jewel of anyone wanting to take over the world. And right now, LA, and starting to be Dallas, soon to be New York, this coming weekend, there's all these planned protests from nokings.org, which I don't buy into. I don't think it's going to be anything big. But, we, instead of placing blame, let's figure out how we can get out of it with American politics, right? Let's focus in on America. What can we do in Los Angeles? What should the FBI, you were in the FBI, what should the FBI be doing? We need to be arresting people, putting it on camera, making it strict. Like, how do we get out of this violence in America? Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. Well, especially the Mexican people in LA. They really don't want this.
Well, I want to say this. I want to make this perfectly clear so that everybody knows when they listen to this. I feel differently than you do about Israel. I believe Israel.
That's fine.
I believe that there are actors in Israel that are not acting in Israel's best interest.
There we agree.
Yeah. But I believe that the nation of Israel has the right to exist, and I believe that there are others in that area that want them not to exist. And I believe that they are in a fight for their life since the very beginning. So we disagree on that. But some things that you said there along the way are exactly...
I never said the state of Israel doesn't have a right to exist, by the way.
Right.
I said that Israel is to blame for many things that they blame others on. And that's historically proven. Yesterday was the USS Liberty anniversary.
And I don't disagree with you on that. I think the United States is to blame. And I've been on, I go on Middle East TV constantly, BBC Arabia, Sky News Arabia, and I hold Israel to the task of what they do and they don't do.
Good.
But
we're all to blame, by the way.
Well, we're humans. I mean, Cain killed Abel.
Yeah.
It started really back then. And so one thing you did say, though, is let's bring it back to American politics. And that's why I went down this road. I didn't go down this road because I'm a conspiracy theorist or because I have this opinion.
Oh, no, that's
about
me,
that
Jonathan.
Nation.
That's me. I'll take the title there.
but trust me, I got guys who work for me and friends that we get in conversations, and I'm a very, if there's evidence for it, then I say this happened. If I don't have specific evidence, I don't say it didn't happen, but I put it over on this board and I say, these are alternate theories. And if evidence for that shows, then I moved. And there's been times, look, before COVID, I would have given you a different opinion on a doctor's opinion.
Same.
My blood pressure or my blood sugar, I would have said, well, I got to be on statins or I got to do this. Now, I'm not real clear on why things keep changing over 30 years. I don't think it's necessarily because they discover a new test that tells you your blood sugar has to be this far down or your blood pressure, right? So there's
because they want to sell you pills, man. That's
right.
Why.
And so there's things that have changed, and I don't call my friends or you a conspiracy theorist, but I look at you and I say you are somebody who, you take all the possibilities and you say you put it right here. I take all the possibilities, I put them on a board, and then I take the evidence and say I have evidence for this. And so when
different show, but I'll be happy to have you on to go through that evidence on a different show for sure.
Listen,
as you can tell, I'm a good debater. I'm polite. Like your opinion, I don't get angry. Like we all have the right to our opinion. And over time, I think everyone's opinion will unite when more facts come out. I think that's just fundamentally.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
And so that's why my buddies and I, we don't get into arguments, but we do have spirited debates because I see evidence from my investigative background. They see evidence from the areas that they collect evidence, which I don't go there and collect evidence, right? Or hearsay, for instance. But I still believe, though, regardless of all of the information that we've been talking about, the one thing that you said is, how does this come back to? How can we bring this back to the United States in politics? And here is what's so incredible about this is that when you look at the COVID virus, for instance, in 2019. And if you got the flu at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, which I did
too. Yeah. A bad
one. And then
Yeah.
I know I got COVID in April because I got tested for it. Right. Which I'm not even sure about that test, to tell you the truth. But
yeah, you had the flu again. Yeah.
So you're right. So I was more deathly ill in January when I had the flu than I was when I had COVID. But here's the thing, that rose out of a location and in a way that was very nefarious, and I would venture to say people in the United States understood or were a part of that nefarious action.
1,000%. Yes.
And so we now have evidence that occurred, which means that is a foreign entity and domestic entities that are working together to cast a lie, which killed tens of thousands of people in the United States alone. So now you look at somebody like Cuomo, who's running for mayor in New York City, was a huge part of that. Made decisions that make no sense and killed 15, 20,000 elderly people by putting elderly people that are sick in with elderly people that weren't sick. Now we say, okay, well, he must have been a part of the conspiracy to spread COVID. I don't know if he was, but I do know that he was getting payoffs by the elderly clinic lobby, right? And so we know he has a close relationship with them. And we know that the federal government under the Biden administration was paying them money to house these people rather than put them on a ship or out in a facility that had 70,000 brand new seats out on Long Island.
Yeah.
So what do we have there? We have
saves them a lot of money in pension and insurance, doesn't it?
And getting rid of voters that might have voted conservative. But we have nefarious intentions by a foreign entity in coordination with domestic entity that used people on the ground, some of them knowing, some of them not knowing. But ideologically, they were all politically left. Now, what I see happening is when we look at Hamas, and I don't look at Hamas, and I think this is something that I think you may see if I say this. I don't know if you know this or not, but when I look at Hamas, I don't see Hamas. I don't see the Palestinian people. I think the Palestinian people is a separate issue. When I see Hamas, I see Iran. And Iran is not focused on the Palestinian people. They're focused on the caliphate. When I see China involved with COVID, I don't see China creating COVID so they can fix it. I see China creating the COVID so they can spread it into the United States and around the world.
Specifically
and
the
have global,
CCP. Yeah. Not even the
yes,
Chinese people. It's
exactly right. So now what I see when I look at the tactics that and the communication and the training and all these things that these leftists are doing out on the street, I don't see college students. I don't see
no.
American citizens. What I'm seeing is the tactics and training that I've seen in other locations, the narrative that has been effective used by Iran. I see Chinese and Iranian and sometimes Russian types of propaganda that the United States is only reserved for certain areas where they have been trying to overthrow a dictator, for instance. We now see that here. So it means that they could be involved as well,
Sure.
which is the domestic entities. And I see a tremendous amount of useful idiots.
Yeah.
So right now, the evidence that I have is that when I put all that on a board, we can chart that where it's been done before and the likelihood that these people that are in LA and Minneapolis and Portland, that they just happened on the same tactics, perfected them, and are going out to the same stores and buying the same equipment. And I don't believe that. So when we look at the big board of all the people that have done these things, and we bring it back to the United States, to the people who have the loudest mouths against the government and hate Trump, you start to see this funnel.
That's the uniting factor.
That is the uniting factor. And I think that shows us that there is an organized group behind this for sure.
And Trump stands for freedom. He stands for liberty. So these are people who hate freedom. They hate liberty. They hate the strong man who's involved as the leader on that side.
Yes.
Tactics, you know, I've had guys on here and guys in my home that I've talked to who train in foreign tactics to make things look that way. So I understand your logical deduction. It's very logical. But at the same time, we live in a psychological war. So, you know, we don't know. That's the thing, is we don't know. What we do know is that there are all kinds of atrocities that are on the way. I won't say they're here yet. We have burned cars, stuff blown up, nobody dead yet. But the real threat here from the Middle East are the sleeper cells that are in this country. And these aren't the protesters. These are not the guys who are out there waving Mexican flags with masks on. Those are useful idiots, well-trained agitators and protesters who are probably being paid very handsomely. There are ads out there for like $3,000 to $7,000 a week to be a protester, which is, you know, for a broke person, a ton of money. And the real problem, I think, that I've been posting this on Twitter frequently, is the, you know, to put it, to give some comic relief to this conversation, the retards that are throwing bottles and bricks are not the people you need to be afraid of. The people you need to be afraid of are the guys who are hiding in Montana or in your own city, awaiting a phone call from the Middle East to be released in America, which have been allowed here since Obama. You know, Obama said he wanted to make this the most Muslim-friendly nation in the world, and he's a leftist. He's a Democrat.
I don't believe it when he says that either. I don't
either. Yeah. I don't believe he has any respectful religion inside of him. I don't believe anything good in Obama exists. But that's my opinion. That's not a fact. So to me, that's the big thing. So obviously the FBI needs to put their boot on a neck from somewhere around here. They've got to be able to put their foot in someone's rear and stop the nonsense. That's not happening. That's Kash Patel. It's Pam Bondi. We don't know if their hands are tied. But at the same time, they shouldn't be tied. And Trump is now sending in military. We have National Guard, and now Marines are being videotaped heading from Camp Pendleton to Los Angeles. To me, this is you know, of course, I want to see the violence squashed. But at the same time, deploying U.S. military on U.S. soil is a very, very slippery slope and a very tricky topic. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to have to leave it here because, man, we went by so fast. I got this other interview I got to do right now. Let me just say this, is that what we have done right here today in this back and forth, mostly me talking, which I'm very good at.
You are very good at it.
Is that
I enjoy it. Thank you for coming on.
And I wish I could be on longer. We need to be on a day when this isn't breaking.
Absolutely.
So we can talk about this more. But I'll leave you with this. I believe what we have done here is what has to happen in the FBI and the DOJ and with President Trump himself. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, what bothers me so much about the way they're going about things is that, and why I don't believe that they're being held off from doing things or compromised, is because the passion that they had in what happened, what they saw happen to President Trump and what they made millions of dollars on. If they truly believed that somebody was oppressing them, then I would believe that they would walk away from this job and say, can't do this job. They won't. We can't do it. And I got a few extra minutes here. So they would say that we can't do the job because there are entities trying to force us to do something that we don't believe. Or, I mean, if they don't do that, then that just tells me that they're either BS artists who got themselves in a position they don't know what to do. And so that's why you see them speaking the Bureau line as though they went from literally within a month saying that the Bureau should be destroyed to saying, oh, we found the real Bureau. Well, they didn't find the real Bureau. They just became in charge of it. And the careerists circled around them and gave them all the praise that they wanted. And unless they're playing a big game and going along with it, but we don't have time for that if that's what they're doing.
No.
And so I think what we see here is that the wrong people are in the wrong position. And we don't have a lot of time. I'd rather see President Trump move those individuals out and put somebody in, or create a justice czar that's going to go and dive through this, because what we're seeing, this whole thing, these people may be on the street in LA, but they are everywhere in government. They are in every government agency. They run the agencies, and they didn't just go away because Trump got elected. They did the same thing that these judges did. They're still there. They're just using their power reserved, and so with checks, right? Before they had no check and balances. Now they know they have to make a decision here or there, but they're still in power. They talk
and they're
about,
going to be. Our federal judges have lifetime appointments since I think 1790. So if you're a federal judge and you're corrupt, you're in office for life. Like, this is something Americans never talk about. Like, that lifetime appointment for federal judges.
I don't agree with it.
I don't either. It's an atrocity. I don't know how anyone. Imagine this, Jonathan. You get appointed head of the FBI, lifetime, and this won't happen to you, but you get paid off by someone and you're totally corrupt. No one can fire you. And we're watching unconstitutional judgment after unconstitutional judgment by federal judges who know they can't be fired. This is a really interwoven web. And I don't think America is really understanding the constitutional crisis. We talk about protests and civil unrest and violence. This is really a constitutional crisis of mass concern for the world, because if we go, they go. You know, if America loses, they're gone. The whole rest of the world is taken over.
Which is the other thing that I find very fascinating is when I talk to my buddies who I told you get into the conspiracy stuff and they go down these rabbit holes, we eventually come back to, we may not agree on who the players are a lot of times, but we agree on what should happen. And that is that we come back to the Constitution, and the leader that we elected should do what it takes to get us back to that level, and back to that focus, back to that oath and that dedication.
Agreed.
I have my fear. I hope, my hope is in God. My faith is in God. I have little hope and faith in human beings, and I don't care who they are. I am not a zealot for anyone. I am a Trump supporter. And if I worked for Trump, I don't know how it would work out, because I would be telling him exactly the way I see it, let him make the decisions, but I'm not going to hold in reserve reality. I believe in his ability to do these things.
And I think he desires that feedback from his people. I think he desires honest feedback from. I don't see Trump being a "I need yes men" person around him. I just don't see that being.
He doesn't, but he does have a history of hiring these people, and then when they disagree with them, like when they say things that he sees, it's full force forward. But when he disagrees with them, he has a history of firing those people, or creating such conflict that it becomes a personal issue. And what I've seen, though, in his first administration and this one, is that they know who the experts are, but they end up hiring the people who are the most popular. And that is a problem that we have right now, is that they just put a 21 or 22-year-old in charge of, I can't remember what the guy's name is, something that has to do with terrorism.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
I don't understand decisions like that. And I think we're in a position now, we still have 3.5 years.
Yeah.
If they can get this under control, That's great. But the problem is if you put people in positions to pick other people, then, and Trump is a very faithful and loyal person. So he has faith or loyalty in that person, but that person is not qualified to be choosing and vetting other people. You're going to get people that are at the level of competency of the person who's choosing.
Right.
And that is what worries me, is that this easy discussion that you and I have had, this kind of back and forth, spirited discussion, but an understanding of what the reality is. If you and I had access to the information that Cash and Dan Bongino have, you and I would know a tremendous amount about what is reality and what's not. And then we could sit down and say, this is the enemy. We know this. We're going to have to develop these tactics and go after these people. They don't do that. They are not doing that. And I don't see an end to this if the president's administration does not get out in front of it.
I agree with that. And I think he is. I think he's doing what he can. I mean, right now, you got to think about all the things that Trump is doing right now. We've got negotiations with China in the UK right now. We've got emissaries all across the world trying to put out fires. And now the fires are being lit here. And this is how a globalist takeover would work. You continually light fires. So you're spending your time putting out fires and not building anything. And I think Trump in the middle of this is building. He's building a great economy behind him in many ways. In many things, we don't know how they're going to turn out, but he's doing the right things right now.
He's doing things that are above and beyond what any politician would have ever done. Dangerous things. He's doing things that are, we're going to go out on a limb here, and if it works, it's going to be spectacular. You may not have taxes anymore, right? If the tariffs worked out the way he envisioned it. But that's what he's good at. What he's not good at is terrorism. He's not good at getting in front of the leftist ideological criminal enterprise. He showed that. That's why they destroyed him on so many levels. But where he's good, he hired the right attorneys. He said the right things because he is like Vince McMahon of politics, right?
Yeah.
He turns it into a story and then he works that story out. Yeah. But you are not going to conquer the left without experts being in charge of that area. He put the right people economically in charge. He put the right people for agriculture, for instance, for
definitely
for the EPA. But we don't have the right people in charge of looking at this leftist ideological criminal enterprise from the grand scale. And
it is a criminal enterprise. And I think you make a very good distinction with that. And I think that America is a gigantic Rico case waiting to happen.
Yeah,
it's a gigantic Rico case. And it's been awesome talking to you about this because we've tied together a lot of things I think most normal people aren't thinking about.
And we don't have time for 3 minutes on TV.
I know. Yeah. That's the shame of mainstream interviews. Is that we are living in this huge interwoven web of American corruption, and it goes from the lowest level to the highest levels of all over this land. The word Rico, which you brought up right away early on, it literally is what America has become. We are living in a group of people who are, some we know, some we don't know. We don't know who the true core is. And that's kind of like the brilliance of a criminal mastermind, is like Kaiser Sose, right? And nobody knows who Kaiser Sose is. Whoever Kaiser Sose is leading this pack is creating the largest Rico case in American history, or maybe global history, because this will extend beyond our borders when it's all solved, if it's ever solved.
Yeah.
But for right now, we need to pray for the people in Los Angeles, the good people, the innocent people in Los Angeles. I'm with you. I don't trust anyone but God. And by the way, that's biblical. God despises those who love the world, right? So the more you love this world and the things about it, that you're moving yourself further from God. So Jonathan, I know you got another interview coming up. Yep. I got to get on the phone for work here. This has been great. Thank you for the spirited debate. I think America needs to.
That's amazing. I hope it's as interesting as it was talking about it for people to listen.
Absolutely. And this is what America should do. Like, we're sitting here, we're laughing, we're friends. You can disagree on things and share your time. We'll get you back on. We'll talk about these topics here in a couple of months hopefully when things die down. Doesn't look like that'll be the case. But I just want to bless you and your operation, your business, and what you're doing and helping this country stay safe. I hope your word gets out there far and wide, and then we handle these riots as soon as possible, because they are going to spread. This is just very planned.
You too, my friend, and keep doing the great work and having the spirited conversation. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy.